Well, Joel, I really appreciate you coming and spending some time with me today and talking really about small farm business. I feel like one of the things we get asked more than anything is how do I start a business like you guys are doing? And just a little bit with our story is Olivia is a sixth generation farmer, and I have no agricultural background, just point blank. I don't. Um, I grew up in the city, and when we first started dating, I had to learn how to farm. And her parents and her family have always been conventional farmers, corn and soybean. They have 10 cows on 50 acres. It's just what it was. Well, obviously, when I'm trying to not look stupid at Thanksgiving and Christmas, I had to learn how to do this. Well, obviously, I know you're very well published. I want to see you 14 books. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But so I have six of them right here with me today, and I've read every one cover to cover. And I think for us, it's been a transformation. Even for Olivia's out with the baby right now, so I wish she could be here with us today. But it's been a full transformation on our farm, and it's amazing that this sounds completely bonkers to me, but we have 6 acres right now today, and her dad is doing 100 acres, and we still have the same amount of animals coming off our land. And we've only been at it for 3 years, and I didn't realize we were at the same. It was just with cattle. I want to make that clear. Just with cattle, it just kind of blows my mind that we're at the same level, and I'm about a tenth of what he's at. And I think with you talking about cow days and pushing that cow day number up, it's really, he's still feeding hay, and I'm only doing it just because I'm trying to get rid of it, and he'll probably still be feeding hay until May in Indiana. So that's kind of where this comes from. So I always tell people when they want to start a small business, I always recommend your books, because that's how I learned. And I think you've been on to something for quite some time in changing how people farm, and I hope that a lot of people do. So I guess my first question for you is, if you were starting Polyface over today, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would change? Anything you would do different than what you did when you started many years ago? I won't say how many years.
Well, it's a lot. I mean, I got my first chickens when I was 10 years old. So,
oh goodness,
that's back whatever 54 years ago. I'm 64 now. So,
yeah.
So yeah, I think I think the main thing is to appreciate the value of a team early on. And that's not necessarily a paid team, but collaborators, partners. Whether it's mentors, whether it's if you're weak mechanically, getting friends with a mechanic. If you're weak, with animal, husbandry, livestock, just that sort of thing. Mentors there, and those aren't going to necessarily all be organic or anything like that. Just I always tell people, look, how to be able to back a trailer efficiently is not organic. That's just there are plenty of farmers out there using chemicals that can back a trailer better than most.
Right.
And so the point is to I think one of the biggest dangers that farmers have, we're very independent. We're we pride ourselves in being independent, and that's an asset. We don't necessarily just rely on everybody. I'm going to go out and do it. But the downside of that fierce independence is that we take valuable time and money doing things for ourselves that a skilled master would enjoy doing, and doing more efficiently and faster than we can do. And we say, well, I don't have the money, I don't have the time. And so I think that one of the biggest problems is zeroing down on what is my skill set, what do I really enjoy, what am I really good at, and then trying to delegate and that can take many forms, subcontracting, partners, friends, mentors, but essentially trying to move all that other stuff onto a team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can look at myself, when people ask me, what's the biggest mistake you made? I can always say, I think I went through the same problem too. I'm a self-made, independent, farmer, and I think that that's a mistake. I think that I could have accelerated maybe some things if I had cultivated. I'm just going to say cultivated a sense of mutual interdependence
Mm-hmm.
faster. We now have this wonderful team with lots of skill sets that I don't have, and it's fantastic. But I think that if you can create some of those alliances earlier on, it'll free you up to be able to really focus on where you're efficient, where you're really good.
Yeah, as I say, I feel like in this last year, I feel like I've traded more chicken for work than I probably would have ever even imagined. I never, I know how great pastured poultry is, but I feel like some of the people that come out and do these little odd jobs, I'm not good at. And granted, I've learned how to weld in the last year, so that was my big accomplishment to myself. But
good for you.
Yeah. It's just that to me, though, it was, the welder costs money and, all the material to do it costs money. But I was one of those things. It's something I wanted to learn how to do. I feel like stuff's always breaking and I was always taking it, 10 miles down the road to get it fixed or whatever the case was. So definitely, though, I think community is huge. And that kind of leads me into the next question I had for you that, I'm sure you get tons of emails and phone calls from new farmers that have read, your books and try to implement a lot of the great systems you've come up with through the years. Where do you think that a lot of them might be going wrong as far as the business side of it goes?
Yeah. Wow. What a great question. And obviously man, you're penetrating right to you're getting to the core of things. So I congratulate you for putting your finger on the nub. I think where people go, and this is partly because I do a lot of teaching and seminars,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm constantly confounded or amazed at the inability of people to what I call push a pencil.
Mm-hmm.
What is, for example, here at Polyface, we actually have timed ourselves so that we have, I call these time and motion studies. They're the essence of margin, of figuring out margin. At Ranching for Profit schools, they teach you that there's only 3 ways to affect profit. You can either reduce your expense, you can increase your price,
Mm-hmm.
or you can, if you have a positive margin, you can increase turnover, i.e. by scale. If you're getting, if your margin is $100 a pig, then you can increase your net income by raising 1,000 pigs instead of 50 pigs.
Exactly.
Those are really the only 3 ways, and I'm constantly amazed that most people can't punch through their actual time and motion value on what does it cost to gut a chicken? What does it cost to gather a dozen eggs? What does it cost to start a chick in the brooder? What does it cost to actually what's a cow day cost? What does a cow day cost?
Yeah.
What's my tip over point where I should buy stocker calves versus have a cow calf?
Mm-hmm.
Including questions like, do I buy a 5-year-old truck at this price or a 10-year-old truck at this price? And so you work out those figures, and I'm constantly just amazed that when you ask people for numbers, they kind of get this, deer in the headlights look. and the really successful farmers that I know, I mean, look, you can go to Elliot Coleman's place, Elliot Coleman up in
Oh yeah.
May, Four Seasons harvest. I mean, you can go to his place and say, Elliot, what's your margin on 10 feet of baby carrots? He can give it to you. He
Yep.
says, here's how long it takes me to plant it. Here's what I get. Here's my cost of maintenance. Here's my cost of harvest. Here's my cost of marketing, and here's my margin, per whatever 10 feet. So how you do that is simply, I think, to start putting numbers down. Put your time down, put your numbers down. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
It doesn't have to be perfect, but you need a basic idea. There's a big difference. If it takes you 40 minutes to put away 30 dozen eggs, that creates a whole different margin thing than if it takes 20 minutes to put away 30 dozen eggs.
Right.
And so that is the primary weakness I see. Farmers don't do the numbers, don't really know what they've got. So what it means is they don't know actually how to attack a weak link. What is I don't know what my weak link is.
Right.
I don't know my opportunity cost. I don't know what the alternatives are.
Yeah.
And so that's the crying need of, and which is one reason I wrote Your Successful Farm Business, because I really see that as a weak link.
Yeah, as I say, it definitely opened our eyes to. So this is going into our 4th full season with cows and chickens on our land, and we're actually getting pigs tomorrow. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
With obviously the opportunity to move to a bigger place, it's going to go from 6 acres to about 22 is what we're looking at. So we're trying to jump the gun and get the pigs so we can get them used to us. So by the time we get them out there, we can get them trained. So I guess the next one I kind of want to dive into is diversity. I know you said just a little bit ago about, if you make $100 a hog, if you raise 100 of them, you got that's your income. For us, I feel like diversity, the big 3 for us is cows, pigs, and chickens. I mean, those are I feel like the most popular meats. I know goats or sheep can kind of be in there with parts of the country or parts of the world. But what made you guys decide, or I'm assuming pretty early on, to diversify into multiple species?
Yeah, well, most of ours was just following the market. We've always followed the market, and the fact is, the per capita consumption in the U.S. of lamb is 0.7 pounds per person per year.
Yeah.
That's not 1 pound per person. Whereas beef it's like 53, chicken it's now whatever 68, pork it's 48, something like that, and so. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of threads here in this discussion, Paul, that we're working with. But one of the things that I think has protected us and propelled us forward is that we do everyman food. We're not into exotics. And look, we've dabbled in. We tried a couple of years growing pheasants. And there's a reason why exotics are exotics. If they were easier, they wouldn't be exotic.
Right. Exactly.
And so the pool, the market pool. So I'll just say 2 things. Number one, when you do, like you said, beef, pork, chicken, okay, that's what Americans eat.
Yep.
All right. And so your market pool is great big when you're doing that. If you're doing ostrich or emu or buffalo or quail, look, I love all those.
Yeah.
And it's not like no opportunity there. But I want you to think how small the market is for that. We see that with the produce growers that we work with. We collaborate with some produce growers nearby that jump on our restaurant delivery truck, and it's funny, so many of them, and I love them to death, but they want to do the special heirloom, the little blue Peruvian fingerling potato, that sort of thing, and I understand it, but the chefs that we talk to constantly tell us, look, I can use about 3 or 4 of those a week. What I need is 200 pounds of just well-grown, tasty Kennebec white potatoes.
Yeah.
Bring me the bag full. And so I encourage folks to. It's fine to to dabble on those edges, but your core, the more you can make your core and every person core, all you have to do, you're not trying to get people to change, from chicken to pheasant. You're just trying to get them to change from bad chicken to good chicken. That's a
Right.
lot easier than to tell them, well, you really don't want to eat chicken, you want to eat quail, or you want to eat, pigeon or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The second part of that in marketing is that that getting the customer is the hard part.
Mhm.
Whether your venue is a website, a farmer's market stand, a CSA, whatever your venue is, the hard part is getting a person to pause, to stop at your venue, open it up, look at it, give you the time of day. And so the one-stop shop, the more cornucopia you can offer to a customer, so that instead of just buying, an egg or beef, they can buy a whole, diversity of stuff.
Mhm.
You become that one-stop shop. And I mean, my favorite story on this was when our son was 8, and he started raising rabbits. And we said, "Oh, who eats rabbit? Nobody eats rabbit. We didn't know anybody eat rabbit." I mean, and so when he started, we just put it on the order blank for that spring. We said, um, if you want rabbit, put how many you want and what month you want it. And
Mhm.
we had a little thing. All it took was a little bit of ink and about 2 square inches of space on the newsletter order blank. And in 1 week we had orders for 150 rabbits. Who'd have thought?
Right.
But that's where diversified piggyback marketing comes in. And so and so the more look, it's a lot easier to find 100 people who will spend $1,000 with you than 1,000 people who will spend $100 with you.
Yeah.
So once you have a customer, you want to just add on those things. And doesn't mean you have to raise them all. I mean,
Right.
we're now handling, milk and cheese and kombucha and ferments and kimchi and handmade lotion
Yeah.
and maple syrup. We're handling lots of stuff, collaborating with other people, because we know when a person darkens our venue, and we've got several venues, but when a person invests in that venue, the more options, the more things that they can buy, the better it is.
I know Virginia probably has, I feel like Indiana has a lot of red tape. I assume Virginia, with the larger population, probably has quite a bit more. Do you guys see a lot of red tape issues with that kind of stuff? So like like the last 2 weeks, we have always bought raw milk for probably about the last year from another local farmer. Indiana has a really stupid regulation on the raw milk industry, and you have to buy a herd share. Then you pay an $8 per gallon maintenance fee to that cow per week, which that's their loophole. And
Yeah.
I think that's just about absolute nonsense. Now, my wife used to show cattle for them in 4-H years ago. So now full circle, now we have a fridge in our storefront. We can't even label it a storefront without all kinds of zoning issues, which just drives me bonkers. So it's just a freezer space, and
Is it on your property?
their fridge is now, but now there's a big legal sign that sits on it that says this is not for resale. This is part of the herd share.
Yeah.
It. I assume, I don't know. Is there a bunch of red tape for you guys when it comes to that, or?
Oh yeah. Virginia is one of the worst raw milk states in the country. And so yeah, I mean we're close to DC,
Yeah.
so we have our share of red tape, and that's one reason why we're hosting the Rogue Food Conference.
Yeah.
That that's going to be, we're going to be hosting that here in June.
Nice.
Or no, is it August? I think it's August, the Rogue Food Conference. And the whole theme of that is circumvention, not compliance. There comes a time when compliance is so difficult and expensive that actually figuring out these loopholes, as you're talking with the herd share and the milk, sometimes those loopholes are actually more efficient actually trying to comply with the licensing and the regulations. They're pretty bad. They're pretty bad.
I feel like that with eggs. So like right now we only have, we have a backyard flock. We don't have anything to production scale. That's in the next couple of years. I'd like to get a Millennium feather net if the wife will let me and put that at the new place. Because I feel like there's a huge egg market where we are. So chicken, right where we are in central Indiana, it's beef and pork. Everyone's got beef and pork. And when we got very lucky 5-6 years ago, we kind of interned for Olivia's dad for a summer. And we basically took an extension of his farm and brought it to my hometown, which is about an hour away. And we just absolutely throttled the market. It wasn't like we were cheaper, but we were transparent, which I'm not saying anything against any other small farmer, but they wouldn't let people come out to their farm. They wouldn't, have tours. We have people, they are referring people to come intern at our farm. And I'm like, wait a minute, why won't you let them intern at your farm? Like, they've reached out to you and you're just sending them to us because we're doing something right here. Anyway, that's a whole soapbox I could stand on. And
that's
but at the same time, like, so with eggs for us, we don't have them to production, but Indiana red tape says I can't sell eggs at the farmer's market without a special permit, without new cartons every single time I sell a dozen of eggs. So if someone brings back one of my own cartons, I can't reuse that carton. And I'm like, that's just completely wasteful. I feel like, and so we just stopped. If we have customers that come out and pick up at the farm, they want a dozen eggs, they can buy it, $4 or $5 a dozen. And that can be the end of it. I'm going to use the same carton, Kroger carton or whatever I got. And it blows my mind, the red tape. I'm like, how is this a profitable business unless you do it to the scale? Obviously everything with scale you can make work, but I know you're just the same way you hate the government oversight when it comes to that.
Well, it is. And I would just encourage you that if you're asking a bureaucrat if you can do something, then you probably don't know the law well enough.
Right.
There's a rule of thumb. There's a rule of thumb that you should never ask a bureaucrat a question that you don't know the answer to.
Right.
And
I like that.
That's kind of a good rule of thumb. And so I never ask a bureaucrat. I ask somebody at Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund or some other somebody that works in this space. And sometimes you can push the envelope. The states are certainly different on their different regulations, but there are a lot of things, a lot of loopholes that you can step through, and so you need to look for those and find them, and those kinds of things in Indiana. Indiana, in a lot of ways you can push that envelope pretty far if you just kind of lay low. And nobody knows you exist.
We have one of the red tape things that we haven't played with, and I don't really intend to with our business model, is chicken processing. You can process up to 1,000 chickens per year without a state inspector. If I don't report that to anybody that I'm processing chickens, like how do you draw the $1,000 or 1,000 bird limit to that? We don't process our own chickens. We have them out of state facility. It's easier for us with just the two of us. I can just drop them off, pay the bill, pick them up. And that's just kind of been our business model. We've incorporated that into the price of everything, and it works for our business model, but that's always been one of the red tape things. I'm like, first, who came up with the rule, and two, who's out enforcing this? I could do 10,000 and be like, oh, nope, I just did 1,000, as far as you're concerned. But
Yeah. Well, there again, those kinds of things, you can get your customers to buy the chick and pay you a caretaker's fee, and you
Yeah.
process them for free. There are a lot of, and I mean, it's cumbersome. I get it. It's cumbersome.
Yeah.
Um, but there are a lot of people that have pushed that envelope pretty far down the line. So
Yeah.
be encouraged.
Yep. So 2020 coronavirus, I know it affected every business, every farm, everybody differently. I still, me and Olivia, 2020, we've had a 3 to 5 year plan as far as our business model went to in 3 to 5 years, we were going to continue to scale. And then at 3 years, we would consider probably more than likely her would quit her job because she has way more farming experience, way more husbandry experience than I do. Coronavirus has just kicked that out the door, and 3 years is now. And she's quit her full-time job. She's on the farm full-time. I still have an off-farm job where I work 24 on and 48 off. It's about the perfect farming job, off-farm job I could have, as far as being a firefighter and stuff. But as far as the business plan goes, it really sped up our plan. Our freezers have really sat empty. We're playing catch up here. I feel like already in 2021 with the beef and the pork and chicken. Obviously, we're just now getting started with the weather. What did you guys have to do to pivot business plans, or did you have to make any changes from last year?
Yeah, well, I was like so many small farmers that direct market. I mean, our 6-month inventory last spring was wiped out in about a month.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, COVID has been, from a business standpoint, it's been great for us. And the tsunami of interest, those empty supermarket store shelves, that got a lot of people's attention. It really did.
Yeah.
That for the first time, people understood that the American food chain was fragile. And that's what people like you and I want people to understand that. We want them to understand that a locally based short chain of custody in the food system is actually, more resilient than a long chain of custody and all the warehousing and all that stuff. So it was really good for us. I think, the thing that really was great for us was that in 2019, we had begun shipping. We worked on that for a couple of years until we decided we're gonna ship, allow shipping to happen, because we, the little business book, Who Moved My Cheese? I mean, that's what happened to us. People that live 10 miles away used to come out to the farm. We didn't see them. We said, "Why aren't you coming out?" "Well, I can sit in the bed and order Butcher Box, and it comes to my doorstep." And we started, that conversation happened several times, and you say, "Oh my, somebody moved my cheese." And so, fortunately, we had started that in July of 2019. So when COVID hit, that just zoomed up, and we were in place for it. In other words, we weren't trying to launch it at the same time. We already had several months under our belt. We'd worked out some, protocol, different things. And so, that was real easy. And it has just continued to be a pretty significant, a very significant part of our sales now. It's been real good. There's been some real holding pattern. So,
as I say, I know you spoke about chefs and stuff earlier. I assume you had quite a few restaurant deals. Did your guys' restaurant market? I mean, ours just crashed here.
It completely tanked. The restaurant market completely tanked, but the shipping and the retail picked up all that slack. It more than picked up all that slack. So actually, financially, we were better off because we were selling retail and not wholesale. So all that, but our hearts broke for our chefs and those businesses and all that, and we don't know how many of them are going to come back. A lot of them won't. They just won't come back. They won't make it. So it's a real shame. But it certainly changed the it changed the landscape a little bit, I think, in just the awareness, people's awareness of food security.
Yep.
And know your farmer, know your food took on a new urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing. It's a good
Yep.
thing.
So this one will be a little bit different. So I feel like, do you feel in the regenerative ag world and a regenerative ag farm business plan, it would be easier to convert someone who's been doing the same thing for 50 years as far as farming goes, or the person that has no farming background coming into this? I really harp on veterans because I'm also one. And I feel like the work ethic they teach kind of, I feel like me and my wife sometimes are at a divide because that's all they've done. They've done the same thing 6 generations to now. I've got her interest to, hey, let's look at this for a second. Like this is, because it's always there. The kickback I always get from the family or even the firefighters I work with who do conventional row crop farming and, the beef, just standard grazing procedures and all that. I feel like it's a huge uphill battle. Would you say one over the other would it be easier to convert or easier to start new into this whole movement?
Yeah, Alan Nation, of course, who was my greatest mentor next to my dad,
Mm-hmm.
who did the Stockman Grass Farmer for decades. He
Mm-hmm.
always said it was easier. It was easier to change the person than change the person's mind. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. And of course, a corollary is the bigger the operation, the harder it is to change.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to turn. It's a lot easier to turn around a speedboat than to turn around an aircraft carrier. So, so the more you have invested in your paradigm in both personal identity, who
Mm-hmm.
am I, what do
Right.
I do, and my stuff, all this stuff out here. The more you have invested in that, the harder it is to make that change. And so in general, I think it's actually much easier to take a person who has a more open slate, um, and teach them
Mm-hmm.
than it is to convert. Now, that being said, we talk about climate change. Well, the hardest climate to change is the climate of the mind.
Yeah.
And so a person with experience, a conventional farmer with a lot of experience, who drinks this Kool-Aid, they can come on pretty fast. I mean, it really is all about. It's about worldview, mindset.
Right.
Um, you know, and so you know, I guess I'm just saying, from my experience, the conventional people, you can't change their mind. You
Yeah.
just they're just going down this way, and it just is what it is. Wonderful people,
Yep.
but you just can't change their mind. Give me a person with a pliable mind and openness to new ideas. I'll take that person any day,
Yep. It's
because they're open to new ideas.
I'll just say it's kind of comical because Olivia's got a younger brother who's in his mid-20s right now, and it's always he's always thinks what we're doing just absolutely crazy. It doesn't work. Nothing about this works. It's too much labor, too much money, and I'm like, I don't have a single tractor payment. I do nothing. I don't even have a tractor. I mean, we've managed on 6 acres for 4 years without a tractor. I moved around bales last year with my truck, which was quite the rodeo, but that's what one of my things I want is to show people that I had no knowledge. I learned it all from you in a book for the most part, and you can get it done. I don't need a $400,000 tractor to make a $30,000 a year pay, and one of my big things with the argument with them too is I never have relied on the government to pay my farm loan every year. And they stop right there. There's no more argument, and they're usually pissed off and walk away. And I'm like, I don't know
Yeah,
what to tell you,
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. Alan Nation used to also tell me, he said, there's no sense in trying to teach a pig how to fly. It can't be done. It can't be done, and it irritates the pig. So, so I love these folks.
Yeah.
They're my neighbors, community. We get along, but we live philosophically. We're on different planets, and
Right.
so there's no sense in beating your head against that. So what you do is you find people who do endorse your idea,
Yep.
endorse your basic um, worldview, and you get your cheerleader base.
Yeah.
I've always told people, our support was never farmers. It was our customers. Our
Right.
customers are our support, and and so I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, you do need positive support. Look,
Right.
it's a lonely life, and things happen out there, and so you do need encouragement. So you need to find people who will encourage you, and spend less and less time with people who poo-poo what you're doing and want to discourage you.
Yeah, we always, like we're pretty like you with an open door policy. People can always come out, bring kids, grandkids, all that stuff. Just let us know
Sure.
before you show up. Sometimes I like to walk around without a shirt on outside, or whatever the case is. And I think that those interactions are so big. And I've heard that comment so many times. We're standing out in the middle of a field right behind the chicken tractors, and they're like, it doesn't stink. Like chickens smell bad. That I have chickens in my backyard. They smell awful. Well, I'm always
Mhm.
like, are they just in a coop? Like, do you let them out? Like, and most of them
Yeah.
live in neighborhoods and they have HOAs and they can't do that kind of stuff. But I'm like, we're literally standing in a pile of chicken manure behind the chicken tractor and it doesn't stink. And I think our customers are our biggest advocates. And we always, when COVID happened, we had quite a few that lost their jobs, unfortunately, due to it. And
Right.
we had the few that they come week after week. They get their part of their going to the grocery, stopping by the farm and picking up their ground beef and chuck roast and whatever for the week. And when they
Mhm.
lost their jobs, we didn't hear from them, so we reached out and said, hey, we had heard they lost their job, and we said that to multiple families. Let us know. No charge. We're gonna get you taken care of. We'll get you through this. And I don't think we have a bigger cheerleading crew right now that goes around. They tell everyone about us. And I'm like, but they all repaid their debt. Like, cause we kept track of everything that was going out. That's how we keep inventory, obviously. And all of a sudden they
Right.
came back, over the course of a couple months, they took a couple $100. They're writing us $500 checks on repayment. We're like, keep your money, but we appreciate your support and being a loyal customer. And I
Yeah.
think for us, coronavirus has really shown people that, find your farmer, that's our big thing. So,
Right. That's right.
I know we don't all have a crystal ball. What do you hope for the future of regenerative ag? I feel like it's picking up a little bit more and more every year. There's new farmers coming in. I felt like there might have been a big resurgence or big surge in regenerative ag farmers last year, but some people I feel like I've heard locally thought this was a great idea. It's too much physical work, so they went back to their city jobs or whatever. What's your output? What do you hope for the future of regenerative ag farming?
Yeah. Well, I think regenerative ag farming is going to be driven by the market. I don't think regenerative farming, if you want to use that term, regenerative farming,
Yeah.
I don't think ultimately it's driven by farmers. I think it's
Mm.
driven by market interest. And so all of our outreach and our messaging is to try to get people who think that all that's necessary for life to be happy is a roof over your head, beer in the fridge, and NFL on TV. When you think about, it's a pretty minimalistic thing that people, pretty minimalistic benchmarks that people have for uh, existence.
Hmm.
And what you and I want people to understand is that we need to invest in our not just minimalistic, but we need to invest in our abundance, our
Hmm.
health abundance, our spiritual abundance, our emotional abundance. We need to invest in that abundance. And it's a good life. You invest in that. And so we want people to viscerally participate with us in stewardship of the planet, stewardship of themselves, and connect those dots. Fortunately, we're getting more and more information about the microbiome and about being outside and immunological function of being outside, those kinds of things. And as that whatever conversation penetrates the society, as society gets sicker and sicker and sicker and can't afford the bills, and especially if things fall apart due to dysfunctional policy, I'll just say that if things get weird, then one of the first investments that people invest in unsettled times is their own health.
Right.
If I'm healthy, I can go live with some deprivation. I can live in a more difficult situation. But man, if I've got to have my meds every day, if I've got to have that insulin shot every day, then suddenly I'm really dependent. It's like a guy, one of these prophetic gurus I was reading listening to lately. He said right now there is a real wave across the land of people who want to disengage from the government. They just want to disengage. I don't want to be dependent on the system, And I think that's a profound, move. And I think it bodes well for people like you and I.
Yeah.
Because we want to disengage too. We want to encourage that reconnection with, our ecological umbilical, our locality, that our listening to our own bodies, that sort of thing. We want to encourage that connection and reduce that dependency on others. There was a MIT professor that just did a recent interview. He's one of these, prophetic gurus, look at the trends. And he said he's found three things that liberals, conservatives, greenies, libertarians all agree on. So there's three things that everybody agrees on. One, we're going the wrong direction, and in 2020 we hit the wall.
Yep.
Number two, I want to be a part of the solution. I want to help. And number three, I don't know how. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, very much so.
And I think what you and I offer our society is we offer a coach hand. We don't have all the answers, but we have some, and we will help you as you help us go a different direction. Right. So we take them by the hand. I don't know how. We address the I don't know how, move them to I can help, and I can help change where we're going. I mean, that's a powerful trajectory.
Yeah, I really hope that is the way the world kind of goes back to. And I feel like, I always think that history kind of repeats itself. You can look, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. I feel like we're in a cycle where it's just repeating again. But to me, the most constant that was always been through history is always the farmer. It's always been the farmer, Yeah. And I know that can be pretty deep there, but I used to do military intelligence. When I was in the Air Force, I did intelligence, and I felt like part of my job was sorting and analyzing the chaos of the world. But then every time I came back, I was like, just repeating itself again. Like, I've read this book before. I know what's about to happen. Yeah. And part of my wanting to do this is just farming and helping others and feeding people and showing others that I feel like this is how we can feed 9 billion, 10 billion people, is with this kind of style of farming. I mean, I look off my property line, it's cornfield and soybean fields all around me. And I'm just sitting there thinking, if I could raise pasture chickens on this, I'm going to increase the soil matter. I'm going to increase the land value. And one of the things I told Olivia the other day, we had a deep conversation about this, probably pillow talk, I'm sure, because I'm sure you and Teresa probably talk about it's always about farming, I'm sure. Is I hope in my lifetime, because corn and soybean land around here is ridiculously high priced, just absolutely over the top. I don't understand how they ever pay for it, overly priced. And I hope in my lifetime that I see pasture ground be higher than row crop. I don't think with big business and big farm, I hope we can make a change with that. But for right now, with, the Monsantos and Bayers and everyone,
Right.
less and less family farms and more big company farms, I'm just like, I feel like for me, it feels like an uphill battle, but I'm willing to put in the fight to make my voice and show what we're doing, because that's one of my goals with this new piece of property we're getting. Is it is about half row crop. So I want to do soil tests before we put the first animal on it, before the first chicken poops on it. And let's see what happens in
get
5-7 years.
Yeah.
And Olivia, I told her that I wanted to do that. She goes, let's not just do it in one spot. Let's do it where the pasture is now. Let's do it, next to the neighbor's property. And I was like, okay, I want to truly see, because we're taking row crop out of production in Indiana. And that's just causing all kinds of a stink with the neighbors right now. So my last question for you, Joel, and it doesn't have to be too profound. It's kind of a joke question. What keeps you up at night? And my response always is my job and my baby. When I'm at the firehouse, tones go off at 3:00 in the morning. Then I come home, I try and get a quick rest, and I still feel like the tones could go off. And I wake up, and if not, the baby's the one who's kicking me in the side, or whatever. But is there anything that, as far as a farm goes, that really keeps you up? Because I feel like you've got everything dialed in over the years and you've shown people how to do it the right way. Is there anything that still keeps you up?
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of that quickly that keeps me up at night is that I failed to fill out a form. It's regulatory compliance. Did I not get a license I was supposed to? Did I not fill out a form I was supposed to? Did I not check a box I was supposed to?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, when you run afoul of a government regulatory agency, there's no sympathy. There's no heart. There's no sympathy. There's no nothing. And so I don't worry about it all the time, but if there's one thing that I do worry about, that I'm concerned about, it's that government compliance paperwork. Did I do it? Did I do it right? Is there some OSHA inspector going to come out and find one of our interns using a frayed extension cord and give us a $5,000 fine? Those kinds of things. I'm not sure whether it was Thomas Jefferson or Ben Franklin. One of them said, when the government fears its citizenry, you have freedom, but when the citizenry fears the government, you have tyranny.
Yeah.
And that's really profound. And I feel like in our, as small businesses in our country right now, we are entering a phase where our biggest fear, we fear some, we got sideways of some regulator somewhere, and goodness knows there's thousands of them, right? There's tons of them, from wages to banks, to food inspection, to OSHA and people and public exposure and blah blah blah. There's a truly at the end, if the truth were actually told, probably not a one of us could live a day without failing to comply with some regulation that's out there.
Oh yeah.
There's that's how many of them there are.
Yeah. And they can kind of pick and choose, I feel like, on which ones they want to enforce on which day. And it is frustrating. I completely agree with that. I feel, the biggest one we deal with probably the most is our health inspector for our county. And I've kept him off our back. And it might because I'm also a city employee and he lives in the city where I fight fires. So I don't know if it's a fear thing that if his house catches on fire, I'm not going to put it out, which would never be the case. But we've, with record keeping and everything we talked about earlier with the owning the business and managing it, is we've kept such extensive records of our freezers, and we use a USDA inspected processor at certified organic and all the right moves. And I've had him last time he hasn't been out here in a couple of years, and last time he did come out, he goes, "You do this better than anybody." He goes, "Every year at this time I'll email you, just email me your freezer records, because like technology is fine. I love technology. To me is great when it works, but it's terrible when it doesn't."
Yeah.
And all I do is send him our freezer logs, and that he's completely, because it shows when the freezers are open, it shows all that stuff. And
wow.
But anyway, that's my little 2 cents about, I completely agree though, because if he wasn't, and I've heard horror stories of him shutting people down, especially with the coronavirus stuff, with the masks and everything, that he can just say, I'm going to shut you down now because you really weren't enforcing masks, but now I'm going to say you violate some health code. And it's like, so if I'm violating the health code, but I follow the mask rule, you're going to say it's okay that I'm violating the health code. And that's government for you. A little bit of government overreach sometimes, but that's the whole soapbox.
Yeah, it is a whole set of box. And, we shouldn't, I would hate to stop this interview on a negative, complainy, some would say a whiny note. But our experience has been very similar to yours in that if you make them, always be courteous, but firm. And our policy has always been, respect them, respect the position, but at the same time, demand respect from them. And as one inspector, one person can be great, and another person can just be a little Hitler, looking for some new tyranny.
Yeah.
And so we stay very friendly with our elected politicians, both Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
And ultimately the regulators work for them. And so in our brush ups in the past, we have always worked through our elected politicians, and they go to bat for us and help. And yes, it does help. It does help to run a tight ship and to have happy people and a clean place, and watch your P's and Q's, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's one of my positives to that though too, is he does buy his meat exclusively from us when we have it in stock, and we do free delivery locally, and we don't charge for it because most of our customers have been super great. They never just order like 1 pound of bacon; they're ordering like $100 worth of product to make, because they understand it's not worth us driving 10 miles to them for their 1 pack of ground beef, but which is great. But he is one of our customers, and every time he's like, "You guys are doing such a great job." He goes, "I don't understand how you guys do it so much better than a grocery store." And I take that as such a high compliment coming from the guy that his entire job is inspecting facilities and the health department stuff. But
that's great. Good for you. That's right. Good for you.
Yeah. Well, Joel, I really appreciate this conversation today. I hope this is able to help some people as far as getting into the farming business side of things, because I feel like we're on to something here. You've been on to something for a long time, and I know we're definitely drinking the Kool-Aid on this regenerative ag movement, and reaping the reward of taking a shot at it. So I want to say thank you for your time and all of the books and knowledge you've provided everybody. I've made my wife read them, and she's not a big time. She doesn't like to read. She'd rather watch a movie or listen to it in a podcast. So I know she's been listening to some of the podcasts you've been on here lately too. So, but
cool. Well, very good. All right. Well, thank you for the time, and it's been an honor to be with you, and blessings on your year. I hope it's great. And I hope the move to the new place will be, I know it'll be stressful, but it'll be behind you in 5 years. It'll seem like a blip and you'll be really, really excited to see the progress. It's
Yeah.
really great.
The move has definitely caused me to lose quite a bit of hair already. So we'll see when it really start moving the cows over and then moving the pigs and then trying to figure out how to move the chickens over there is really going to be quite the feat to accomplish this year. But I know we'll get through it, and I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to seeing the reward on it, and might even send you some of the soil sample stuff when we get some of that stuff back, so we can kind of keep track on what row crop looks like to what it looks like when you do some regenerative ag movement stuff on it. So
Great. All
thank you,
right.
Joel. I appreciate it.